Check out our streaming schedule for this week. We stream every single day on this channel, talking about all things sports history. And now with college basketball season really getting in the swing of things, we are doing a lot of college basketball streams, commentating the action as we get one step closer to March Madness. So join me every night as we call the best of college basketball. And now, on with our feature presentation. September 20th, 1992. It's week 3 of the NFL season, and we've got a battle on our hands in the AFC over at Jack Murphy Stadium between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the San Diego Chargers, in a game between two teams going in completely different directions. Both the Steelers and the Chargers are being led by first-year head coaches, with the Chargers being led by Bobby Ross and the Steelers being led by future Hall of Fame head coach Bill Cowher. However, both teams and coaches were off to completely different starts to this 1992 campaign, as while the Steelers entered this game undefeated with a 2-0 record, the Chargers were winless and were 0-2, with both of their losses, divisional losses to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos, being by multiple possessions. This game felt like a must-win for the Chargers in so many ways. If you were 0-3, good luck bouncing back and making the playoffs. At that point in NFL history, only 2 teams had ever made the postseason after an 0-3 start, with those teams being the 1981 New York Jets, and with a giant asterisk attached to it due to the fact that just about everyone made the playoffs that season because of the strike, the 1982 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You cannot afford to lose this game on your home field of the Steelers. You cannot have anything go wrong. And sure enough, a lot of things went wrong for the Chargers on this day. Because when all was said and done, the Chargers not only lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they got blown out, losing it by a final score of 23-6. The Chargers not only turned the ball over 3 times, but they were extremely sloppy and careless, committing 10 penalties and having nearly double the penalty yardage that the Steelers had. San Diego was porous on 3rd down, going just 4 for 15, which played a big part in why the team was unable to score any touchdowns on this day. And even though the game was competitive at the half, with the Steelers only leading it by 1 at the halftime break, Pittsburgh scored the final 16 points of the contest in the second half to pull away and take it by 3 scores, setting the Chargers to 0-3, and at least on paper, just about ending their season, even though we would later know that this would not be the case. Just about everything for the Chargers went wrong on this day. If you want to know just how awful this game right here was for the Chargers, let's talk about what happened to their starting quarterback, Stan Humphries. Because as great as the final 3 quarters of the season was for San Diego, where they erased an 0-4 start and somehow made the playoffs by winning 11 of their final 12 games, that's how disastrous the first quarter of the season was. Because during this game right here, in the losing effort, Stan Humphries got hurt in one of the most bizarre injuries in NFL history. Not because of how he got injured, but rather what happened after the injury, which showed how outdated Jack Murphy Stadium was by the early 90s. If you want to know why it's important to have working technology at your stadium and to make sure everything is up to date, this is exactly why. Because it just about cost the Chargers the game here. Because this is the story behind one of the craziest injuries in the history of the Chargers franchise, and one of the strangest moments in the history of Jack Murphy Stadium. Before I talk about the actual injury in question, be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. We post every single day about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL, so if you like that sort of stuff, then this is the place for you. And I'd really appreciate your support as we try and get closer and closer to 70,000 subscribers. Thanks in advance for your like and your subscription, and with that in mind, let's talk about the stadium malfunction from hell that ended up costing the Chargers big time. Before I talk about the actual incident in question, we need some context to understand who this man right here was that was starting for the Chargers at quarterback. This man right here is Stan Humphries, formerly chosen by Washington in the 6th round of the 1989 NFL Draft. After a few seasons in the nation's capital, where he was buried on the depth chart, Humphries found himself on the Chargers in 1992, getting traded to San Diego after John Freeze, their starting quarterback the year before in 1991, got injured. Almost immediately, Humphries was thrust into the starting role. In Week 1, after starting quarterback Bob Galliano played like crap, going 7 for 20, completing 35% of his passes while having 5 net passing yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 4.2, which is worse than if he did nothing but spike the ball into the ground on every single play, Humphries relieved him and became the starting quarterback from that point on. Seeing as Galliano had done next to nothing in his decade in the NFL at that point, with a negative touchdown-interception ratio and that stinker in his first ever Chargers start, it was very clear. The Chargers were completely and utterly screwed if this man right here, Stan Humphries, was off the field and Bob Galliano had to come on for whatever reason. The less time Bob Galliano had to be on the field, the better. Whether Humphries was the future remained to be seen, but at the very least, the difference between he and Galliano was like the difference between the Mona Lisa and a 5-year-old's macaroni artwork. And so far in this game against the Steelers, Stan Humphries was playing all right. He was doing his job as the starting quarterback. He hit Anthony Miller on a 35-yard pass on the first passing play of the game in what might have been his best throw as a pro ever up until that point. He had a touchdown throw on the run that got negated due to a holding penalty. He had another play that should have been a touchdown from 40 yards out, but the ball went through his receiver's hands. The Chargers had a case of the dropsies early on in 1992. By the time the 2-minute warning hit, Humphries was on fire, as he was 7 for 10 with 92 yards passing, and again, it really should have been 8 for 10 with 132 yards and a touchdown, if not for a drop pass. Still, even with the actual stats of 7 for 10 with 92 yards, that's a passer rating just shy of 100. He was slicing and dicing this Pittsburgh defense, and as long as he was out there, it seemed like the Chargers had a good chance of winning this game and picking up their first win of the season. However, his final throw in that stretch was the costliest, because as he completed a 14-yard pass to future Pro Bowl running back Ronnie Harmon to get his team past midfield, Humphries took a low shot, getting hit late and low by nose tackle Gerald Williams. No flag was thrown on this play, but you can bet that if this took place in 2025, that's getting flagged every time, if only for how low Williams went. With that injury, we didn't know whether it was a knee or an ankle at the time, but with it, Humphries was sidelined and was replaced by Bob Galliano. Humphries was able to make it back to the bench before being carted off into the tunnel, where the team would do some x-rays and would determine whether or not he'd be good to go back out there. And the good news was that even though the injury looked really bad, it wasn't. Humphries was feeling all right despite the ankle injury, and so long as the x-rays came back negative, he'd be back out there and would be relieving Bob Galliano of his duties. So, in a normal world, Humphries gets the x-rays inside the stadium with the x-ray machine, the results come back the way that he and the team wants, and he gets back out there for the start of the second half. Except, there was just one small problem with this grand plan. There was just one teeny tiny problem that we need to talk about when it came to the injury involving this man right here in Stan Humphries. Because, you see, in order to get x-rays, you need to have a working x-ray machine. That seems obvious, but it's true. It's like how if you want to play soccer, you need to have a soccer ball. Or if you want to take a road test, you need a motor vehicle to drive with. And when Humphries got carted into the tunnel and the team went to the x-ray machine at Jack Murphy Stadium, they realized, oh crap, our x-ray machine is broken. And that's a problem for many reasons. But the main one being that if you're Stan Humphries, you can't go back out there until the x-ray tests are done. If you're the Chargers, you're not sending Humphries back out there until there's x-rays, and there's very obvious reasons for why. So instead of having the x-ray machine inside the stadium, having the tests done right then and there, and having Humphries go back out there for the second half, and maybe even the end of the first half, Humphries had to be transported to the hospital to get the x-rays done. And obviously, they're not stopping the game while Humphries has these x-rays taken. So this meant that for way longer than they would have liked, Bob Galliano was quarterbacking the Chargers, all because of a broken X-ray machine. And with Galliano, oh man, the offense stalled completely, as you're watching right now. Any chance that the Chargers had at winning this contest seemingly died the moment that Galliano went out there, and the longer he was out there commanding the offense. By the time Humphries was finally able to come back in the game, following the lengthy hospital visit due to the broken X-ray machine, which, instead of being before halftime, or at minimum, the start of the third quarter, was late in the third quarter, Galliano's stat line was an abysmal 3 for 7 with 78 yards passing, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 44.6. Now you might be saying, well, that's not the worst per se. However, what if I said that 55 of those passing yards came on a Hail Mary from their own 30-yard line with no time left, and the ball was tipped before being caught? Take out that completely meaningless completion, which shouldn't have even been caught, and his numbers are 2 for 6 with 23 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a passer rating of 6.25. That tipped Hail Mary, which didn't even result in points because they were so far back, is doing a crap ton of work for his passer rating. It was garbage time. Remember, Humphries completed 70% of his passes with a passer rating just a hair under 100. And this man right here had a touchdown taken off the board with a holding penalty and had another touchdown that was dropped. They were moving the ball with this man under center. With Galliano, however, it was like night and day. Maybe Humphries plays better in the second half if he's not super rusty after an impromptu hospital visit that would not have happened if not for a broken X-ray machine. Maybe the Chargers win the game if Galliano doesn't have to play a lot. But if there was a main culprit for this loss to drop the team to 0-3, it was the X-ray machine from hell that chose to malfunction at the worst possible time. Because after the game, head coach Bobby Ross talked about just what happened with regards to this man right here, Stan Humphries, and how everything went haywire out of nowhere. Said Ross, "It was just one of those days. We go in, and our X-ray machine breaks down in the stadium, so we have to get him to the hospital. When we would like to get him back out there fairly quickly, we've got to send him to the hospital, and he misses the half and part of the third quarter. It's just frustrating to a lot of people, and I'm probably at the top of the heap." He then added, "If we had known that it wasn't broken, we could have gotten him back into the football game a little bit quicker." Alas, that was not the case. Humphries missed the end of the second quarter, missed the halftime break, missed most of the third quarter, and went cold, all because of a broken X-ray machine in their own stadium. If you want to know how unlucky the Chargers were and how cursed that franchise seemed to be at the time, that's Exhibit A, ladies and gentlemen. That is Exhibit A. So as a word to the wise for any teams or stadium officials watching this video for whatever reason, make sure your X-ray machine works. If a player has to go to the hospital because the injury is serious and they're not getting back into the game and they just need to be in that facility, that's one thing. But if a player has to go to the hospital because you don't have a working X-ray machine and the player has to be gone for nearly an hour of real time when he could have come back and almost immediately had it not been for your technology breaking down and just crapping out at the worst possible time, that is an entirely different matter. Hypothetically, with the way Humphries was playing and with the way Galliano stunk all year and for his entire career, maybe the Chargers win this game and get the number 1 seed and home field advantage throughout the playoffs if they had a working X-ray machine. Who's to say? What we do know is what Bobby Ross thought of the X-ray machine at Jack Murphy Stadium on this day. Because in the eyes of Bobby Ross, it was anything but a happy little accident. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot, and check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.